So I'll set the stage just a little bit. As you guys might know, we have been hosting these video sessions over the past few months where we work with candidates that are looking for jobs, mainly in sales or marketing. And we invite really great leaders like Richard, who are using some of the best practices in sales and marketing, and we help you guys apply those to your job hunt. So for example, we've written like B2B style emails. We use a lot of the same techniques that a B2B salesperson would use in their sales process in your interview process. Amanda, we can kind of start with you because I know you're still in the interview process. Doug just got hired, so congratulations, Doug. Although we know that the journey doesn't stop there. So with some of these sessions, what we do is we dive into that first 30 days, right? How can you continue networking? How can you kind of hit the ground running and go? So I'll let Richard kind of take the lead in terms of like, you know, keeping it conversational if you like. And Amanda, maybe you can either bring us up to speed, or Richard, if you want to ask Amanda some questions, it's kind of totally up to you.
So tell me where you are in the interviewing process with things. And most importantly, what do you want to try and get out of this meeting, right? I can go off, believe me, about interviewing. I love interviewing. But this isn't about Richard.
Sure. So hi, nice to see everyone. I'm Amanda Wong. So great to be here. I was most recently at Warner Media in their branded entertainment and integrated ad sales marketing group. So working with clients across all ad verticals to create branded content across all platforms. And really, I'm in the beginning stages of interviewing, like pretty much a lot of people it seems to be right now. And I think Hytham's been really great in terms of showing me how to really personalize emails, make them short to the point, and really try and sometimes use personalized video to make yourself stand out to a potential hiring manager. And I think that there's some great value add that I've been learning on these huddles, how to really make yourself stand out, how to personalize, how to really engage the person who's looking at a million emails all day. So I'm in the beginning process of really looking at companies. I think the challenge really is just that there are so many people in the market right now looking for jobs, but I'm glad to hear that Doug just got a job. So that's great news. But yeah, I'm just interested to learn more about how you really use these tactics. I'm not as familiar with the sales tactics. I'm more in the media, shooting commercials type side. So it's just really great to hear your POV on how to use those tactics to get an interview and a job.
Yeah, my wife was in that scene on the production side of shooting commercials and stuff like that. So that happens some things. So and is your challenge that I'm not sure my resume is right, I'm not sure my LinkedIn profile's right, I can't get through to the right people? Where do you?
That's a good question.
Better at?
So I've been working with different people on I have a branded portfolio website with all my work. I've got the LinkedIn, I think pretty up to date, but I change that on a day-to-day basis. I try and post a lot on LinkedIn and engage with followers and make new connections. Yep. I think the challenge really is, sure, you see a job, you're like, oh, I'd be perfect for this job, and then you actually make a connection at the company who's pretty senior, and you send your resume and your cover letter to that person, to an actual email address, and then it's maybe not hearing back, maybe it's just, too many people are applying for the same job. But yeah, I think it's just, it's a lot of people are applying. Like I've got like 10 friends from Warner Media that are all looking for the same job as me. So I think that's what it is.
So you send an email with a resume, and is that it, or do you do anything else?
Yeah, usually it's an email and a resume or some type of catchy cover letter. Although, I'm really impressed with the personalized video, so I haven't done that yet, but that's kind of next on my list. I kind of want to do something like that. I think that's.
So talk to me about at Warner, what were three of your biggest accomplishments?
I mean, from a client perspective, we were able to generate new revenue from big clients like PepsiCo, Warner Brothers Studios. So, sorry?
How much new revenue do you think you brought Pepsi?
I mean, to Warner Media? That's a good question. I mean, at least I know that the numbers are different from, sales, but I would say added value revenue, addition to what they might spend on their media commitment to Warner Media. Maybe it's, upwards of 20 to 30 million, but it depends on, so if they've
Great.
spent,
So let me ask you this. You send me your resume, and I haven't seen your resume yet, but I'll assume it looks similar to your LinkedIn profile. I'm on your LinkedIn profile right now. What do you think stands out more? What you have there, which should be there, or $20 million added to Pepsi revenue over 12 months, 13 months, $14 million added to Starbucks, whatever your next piece is.
right,
The people who are hiring you want to know your results.
right,
75%, they want to know what you're responsible for, 25%. Right? They do need to know that, I've worked in an integrated team and multi-channel, blah, 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 like all that stuff, but you just sound like everybody else.
right.
What makes you stand out? So I'm a huge proponent, and it's always the number first of 20 million, 100, whatever it is.
Right.
If you had quarterly goals, it would be 110% Q4 2019 at goal attainment. Numbers, 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 because that's what people are hiring. They're hiring for success. Success is always measured, in my opinion, by revenue.
Right.
Now, there are other things like, 10 new hires between 2020 and 2021 responsible for onboarding, right? Like all those, anything that shows a number will get someone's attention.
Sure.
So those are the things I would put on your resume. Now, I also understand that there are certain things like the client verticals matter, right? Because you're a niche world. So you can kind of leave it like the way you have it, client verticals. In theory, if you really had the data, and this may be too hard to get to, net new revenue and content studios entertainment was this number. Gaming, this number, right? Like showing them this level of success, right? So that's the first thing I would tell you to do, and I would put it on your resume too. And it's always numbers first. They'll look for details, right? The higher up you go for hiring people, and in my opinion, the less time they have to read. So give them something juicy. Give them numbers that makes them go, all right, now let me see what's next.
Got it.
That's the first thing. Second thing is your strategy. And we're going to talk about the hiring strategy, and then I'm going to pause and see if you have other questions. And by the way, push back on me a little bit too of like, Richard, that's not how our industry works. Like, I know that sounds good from a sales perspective, but that's not in our industry.
That's fair. I think the numbers that also probably they want to see are brand awareness increase, social sentiment.
Whatever it is. Yeah. Yep. But they still want revenue tied to that brand awareness. You drive me brand awareness, great. Well, how much revenue do I get off that awareness? Exactly. I can drive all kinds of awareness. Like that's no big deal, right? But if it's bad or it's not converting, then they're going to hire somebody else.
Right.
I also think a lot of it is also just like what Richard's mentioning. It's like the order and the structure behind it too, right? So very punchy, very short, start with the number, go into the description so they just know what to look for as they scan.
Yep. Then the outreach goes something like this. And I did this because I went through the downturn in 2007. I've done it a couple of times since. I've trained some people on how to actually do this. And they're telling me within the last 90 days, it's still working. So I'm very comfortable with this. First thing is, so yes, you apply online, right? If you've got their personal email, you also send it to the email. The next thing I do is I get on LinkedIn and I look for the head of HR. Hey, Sarah, just replied to this. Would love to know who's the hiring manager. Thanks so much. Right? Would love to connect. I then go to who the hiring manager is, and I connect with them or send them a message on LinkedIn. Right? Saying, hey, I just applied for this role. I just want to let you know I'm really excited about it. Would love to connect with you. Okay. Then the next thing you do is you pick up the phone, and this is a little bit harder in COVID, and you play the phone tree and then leave a voicemail for that person at HR and that director. Mm-hmm. This shows your ability to go for it, right? And no, you're not being too aggressive, which is often, well, am I being too aggressive? I'm like, my answer to that is, how many times have you applied the way they've asked and gotten no response? I'm like, yeah, all right. And I'm like, well, then you're not being too aggressive. Um, if they can't recognize that you're being passionate about it, then that's also a buying signal for you that maybe I don't need to work for someone who doesn't get it, right? Um, and so you now target a company, right? Whatever the company is, and you go after the who you think the hiring manager is, and you can go after two or three.
Mhm.
You know, it could be the VP, it could be the SVP, it could be the director. I would do the same to all three of them. And then I would do it to HR. Who's the head of HR? And then if you can see someone else that may be related to the department you're applying to, sometimes you can find that, right? And then the second biggest concern I get is, well, what happens if they all compare notes? Well, hallelujah, they know you're a hard worker.
Right.
Nobody's going to go, oh my God, you know, and again, if they're like, this person won't leave me alone,
Right.
well, you know, like you're trying to stand out, so stand out, right? I love the video idea. If you can do the personal videos, I love it. That's the one thing. The other piece I want to ask you, I'm going to pause there and then I'm going to ask you a question. How does that feel going after that type of a strategy or tactic?
How does it feel?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in theory, that's great. I think the question, well, the calling thing, I don't, it's not working right now, but I could see how that would be beneficial if we were all, you know, sitting in offices. So that makes sense. And it does show persistence, which I think is great. Um, I think it's a matter of just getting through to the right people, showing you're passionate, and showing how you add value and stand out. I think, you know, since I'm on the creative side, you know, a while ago, before COVID, I had this idea. I wanted to work at whatever, New York, the New York Roadrunners, and I was going to send like a running shoe and like my resume in the running shoe, but that is not a thing because nobody's, you know, accepting mail and nobody's in their office. So, but a creative way to make yourself stand out that's different than email. So video obviously is the next thing. I think that's, you know, a good.
Yep. So there's a couple of thoughts. So one, if you're going after bigger organizations and they had a phone tree, those people are still checking their voicemail. It's not like those voicemails aren't coming through, or that call is now being forwarded to their cell phone.
Right.
So I would, I would, I would not believe that they've just, oh well, nobody's going to answer that phone anymore, and they're not checking phone. But I
That's a
find
really
it
good
hard to
point.
believe.
Richard, do you
Second
have
thing
any?
is,
Sorry.
I actually see the direct mail working. The question then becomes, how do I get the address,
Right.
right? If you know the person, you know the city they're in, believe me, there's services you can pay like $40 a month to, you know, Google Richard Harris and figure out, granted there's 1,000 of them, but you know, if you know I'm in Moraga, you can go through and say, I want that person's address, and you send something,
Yeah.
right? People are accepting mail. This, you know, what happened in April and May when, oh my God, we can't touch the mail. Not true. To the same extent, and this would be a good question. Whenever you get a chance to ask, like as you go at the right time, or maybe you call a friend who's got a job, what's your company doing with mail? Is it getting forwarded to you? Right? Because if it's going into a big organization, again, it's not just sitting in the mailroom. They got to be doing something with it. Now, in a job world, that could add 1 or 2 weeks for it to get to that real person, and so that might be the challenge for you, right?
Yeah.
If you're sending it to the main office. But I think you can do all these things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Coming from the media side, we used to send gifts to clients all the time and just, you know, and it's just one of those things that if you go the extra step, I think it's worthwhile. And I think also, you know, we also have a lot of production vendors that want to sell their services to us. And I think, you know, once you can actually have like an in-person meeting and say, you know, here's where we can add value, I think that's really beneficial. The challenge is how do you get that one-on-one, you know, with a person, even if it's for an informational, you know,
right,
interview.
right.
So that's
Yeah, I mean, so again, another tactic, and I'm not sure you should do it this way because the word interview is different. It actually means interview.
Mhm.
I actually have done, and I teach sales reps how to do this too. I would say send an email to Doug and say, "Hey Doug, request for interview," in the subject line. "Hey Doug, I'm doing this. I'm requesting your such and such," right? Um, you could send an email that says requesting industry feedback. "Hey, I'm doing some research on how people are hiring, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." And you just get on the phone and you have a conversation. You don't pitch yourself, right?
Right.
Let them assume you already have a job, but you can at least talk to one or two people and see
Sure.
if you can learn something there, right?
Yeah.
Um, I would also make those, if you're going to go down that path, make them the people at the bottom of your list, not your favorites. Like, I'm sure you've got a top 25. Try that strategy with 24 and 25, not 1 and 2.
The question I had was, Richard, when you're talking about calling these people up, I feel like if you have a job, those sorts of tools to find people's phone numbers are more readily accessible. If you don't have a job, like what sort of tools are you using, or do you recommend, or how are you finding people's phone numbers that you want to
Yeah,
reach out?
great question. So, trying to find the one that I've used. Intellius is a decent one. Intelius. They're a little bit more background checks than others, so you may not need the police record and all that stuff.
Not likely.
Would Lead IQ work for something like this, Richard, or is that
It's
just for?
possible. Yeah, there's actually a tool out there called Seamless.ai.
I
It's
used
actually
Seamless at my old job.
what's that?
I used Seamless at my old job.
That can work. I think they give you like 15 free ones to try it.
Okay.
Another one is called Spokeo, Spokeo, reverse phone number lookups. And then the other one has been verified. And so you got to look to see if it'll actually give you the number versus do you have the number and it's trying to tell you who called you. Like those are two different muscles.
Right.
Yeah.
Spokeo,
Okay.
I've done the most.
Okay. Cool. And then just one thing to add to your point about the informational interview or request to talk. I found in my job search that if you're speaking with somebody like at a friend of a friend who's like a connection at this company that's offered to hop on the phone with you, a lot of the times like they're on the phone with you and you tell them about like what you're looking for, why you're interested in the company. By the end of the call, they'll say like, if you find a job that you're interested in, let me know and I'll refer you. Like most of the time, like I didn't have to ask them for a referral or anything like that. Like they were willing to help out, which is nice. So it kind of turns into it goes from being an informational conversation while also like learning more about the company, but you also are getting your foot in the door too.
Yep. References matter.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They'll always take a reference from somebody if you know somebody, right? So if you know somebody on LinkedIn and you see they're connected with somebody, then by all means, asking them of like, "Hey, I'm applying to this role. How well do you know them? Would you be comfortable sending this kind of message to them?" Right? And you almost sort of write the email for them.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, Bob," you write the email for John to send to Sarah, and that way he or she doesn't have to actually formulate that email, right? Now that also depends on your relationship with that person,
Yeah.
right? So so that is a great strategy. If you can find personalization things, like if you can see a quote or an article, right? I love to send an email and it'll say your quote in Forbes magazine or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that to me is a huge thing to at least get them to open the email, right? So anyway, so that's sort of I'm a big fan of that. And you just sort of say, "Hey, I really love this quote. I also saw you have this open position. I'd love
Yeah.
to apply. I'm applying for it. Anyway, your quote resonated with me because, and tell them why you liked it. And now you've made a personal connection. Then
Yeah.
you go and you do the LinkedIn connection, right? Then you make the phone call, and now they've gotten hit by you, 3 times within 20 minutes, which I think is totally fine. What
Yeah.
you'll find if you follow this strategy, what you'll end up finding is that you'll probably spend an hour applying to one company.
Mhm.
And so by lunchtime, you've only applied to 3 companies,
Right.
but you've applied deeply,
Right.
right? Which is way better than the spray and pray approach,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so this is the technique I've used and I would use if I were looking for a real job. It's the technique I teach everybody to do when they want to do it. So that's my belief on it.
Yeah, I think that that works. I was actually reading an interview in Adweek or Ad Age with the head of digital marketing for Activision, the video gaming company, and I liked it, so I just sent the guy a request on LinkedIn. I said, "Hey, I really enjoyed your interview, and looking forward to seeing more from Call of Duty. Best. I mean, that's it." And I didn't really actually need a job. I just thought I'd connect with him. So, and he was like, "Hey, thanks so
Did he
much."
reply?
He did. He was like, "So
Yeah.
great to connect." Yeah. So if I need a job,
So
then I'll hit him up. But
so
yeah,
that's the guy I would say, hey, I'd like to get some feedback if you're open.
yeah,
You know, I'm trying to see what people like you. Yes, I'm looking, but I'm not trying to apply to you.
right.
But I'm looking for feedback from people like you so I can understand my customer as I'm trying to get a new role. Right now, there will be some approach of like, hey, you could say, I'm happy to send you my resume so you can give me feedback, but I don't want you to misinterpret this as me applying for, I mean, you sort of have to play this interesting game of like, I'm not applying, but that if he sees something he likes in you, he's going to say, well, there is this role, right? Like that's the game.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
that's a perfect example of how you can do this, right? And and hopefully he'd be willing to give you some feedback,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
I think people generally like to give feedback, and I think in both scenarios, whether it's a referral or giving you feedback, it helps them look good or feel good, or both.
yeah, it strokes the ego. It
Hmm.
helps them feel good about themselves. It helps them feel like they're helping somebody else, right? Their altruistic piece of that. Um, and if you do it super respectful of like, I really just want your advice, the rest will take care of itself, right? And even if he or she doesn't bite to try and apply, you're still welcome to say, hey, I promised I wasn't asking for your role, but do you know of any other people at other companies that are looking for someone like me?
right.
Yeah.
Because now you have a referenceable point, right? And every leader, in my opinion, is always on the keeping an eye out for good candidates.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah,
And you better deliver in that experience. Don't ghost them, right? Be responsive.
right,
Make
right,
sure you make them look good all the way through.
Yep.
sure.
What else can I tell folks?
So Amanda, unless you have other questions, we can kind of jump into first 30 days in an account executive role.
I want to hear from Doug.
Okay, cool. So yeah, Doug, bring us up to speed, man.
Yeah. So I recently received a job offer as an account executive for a software company. So I'm starting on October the 12th after I get married next week and go on my honeymoon.
Congrats.
So a lot of exciting things happening. And so, yeah, obviously like I'm going to get back and probably be a little bit tired and really need to be able to hit the ground running. So these first 30 days are obviously very important. I know the space well. I know the
Who is it?
Sorry?
What's the company?
Yotpo, YOTPO. It's
Okay.
a e-commerce marketing platform. So they help brands with their ratings and reviews and loyalty programs and SMS marketing. So
Got it.
really kind of all encompassing those different strategies.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just, it'll be interesting starting a new job remotely. And those first 30 days obviously are very important. And so I'm trying to do whatever I can this week and next week to make sure that I am ready. And just any thoughts that you have on prep work and what I can do to just.
What have you, just before I start to pontificate, what have you actually done? What kind of research have you done on this company, even through the interview process or even since you've been officially hired?
So the the history between me and the company goes a long way back. I actually interviewed with them last year and received an offer last year from them, but ultimately that got blocked by a non-compete. So I got a different job, and that position was affected by COVID. So I'm very familiar with the company. Like my new manager is someone that I interviewed with last year. And so as far as what I've done to get ready, I am obviously just kind of paying attention to trends, like visiting like TechCrunch and seeing like what sort of new
Okay.
things are, like so many
Right
brands
there.
are on e-commerce. So it's like,
So
it's
how
like where
much, how many articles have you read that have been written about them?
about them,
Mhm.
I'd say dating back to when I first started interviewing, even before that, I'd say at least like 10 to 15.
Okay. How many of you read? So this is my rollout. One is you need to read 5 articles about the company, 10 articles about different people. And that means you find the right high level, C-level executives, see if they're posting on LinkedIn, see if there are quotes and articles out there so you can get familiar with the tone of the conversation within the organization, right?
Yep.
I would then, and this isn't hard, it's just it feels tedious. I would literally, and I would take notes like I was back in college. I would literally go and read every case study and take 2 notes on that case study because you're going to need to know how to bring those up in the sales conversations,
Yeah, 100.
regardless of
Like
training.
the biggest thing is telling stories when you're
Right.
on a sales call.
So formulate what you think is the story on that case study, right?
Okay.
And write it down. I would even go so far in those studies, if you look at, I would look at, these are the things I would write down. I'd write down the name of the company, the dates the case study covers, the pains that were specifically discussed. And then I would say, who's the title of all these people? Right. And I would almost do it in I'd almost do it in a spreadsheet format, right? So
Mhm.
that as I do 5 or 6 of these, I can look across the title row and see if I see common titles. As I look across the pain row, I could see common pains. I might even put industry in there, right? Like,
Yeah.
so name of company, what industry, um, name of the person, the title of the person, the pains that were discussed, the timeline of the case study, and obviously what were the end results.
Right.
Like that to me that is your graph of study.
Yeah.
If
I
you did
mean,
nothing else between now and getting hired and you did that, you're way ahead of the curve.
yeah, that's really true. Just because, like thinking back on my most recent job, there was such an emphasis on telling these client stories just from day one, and so that'll be obviously it'll be good to know like what companies Yotpo is working with, and also like how to formulate these studies or these stories when speaking with potential clients on the phone. So it's a really good idea. That's helpful
People buy stories, they don't buy words.
for
They
sure.
don't buy effectiveness and efficiency. They buy the story behind that.
Yeah.
Is there a certain like formula? I know there are a couple of formulas out there for storytelling and case studies. Are you using something like that, Richard?
Now I formulate my own. I probably should go read about it and get more, go learn off someone else's harder work than my own.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think as far as just kind of getting up to speed, like I've already had conversations with like the VP of sales, and he said like the first 2-3 weeks will be onboarding, and so they've invested in a platform that focuses on like remote learning. So that's good. And then I've set up a meeting with my manager for next week, even though I don't start for 2 weeks from then, just to kind of lay some groundwork and see what I can do, in those few days before I'm kind of out of town, really.
Yep. Yep. I think that's great. I think that, I mean, have you asked them, hey, where can I get ahead of the game?
Yeah. So they're gonna. So the the recruiter that I've worked with, the HR individual, has said that they're waiting to set up my email before like sending over some
Fair
different
enough.
like
Right.
deals. So I've asked for like a recorded demo of the platform, and things like that, just so I can get familiar with it before actually like really learning it. And so they're gonna send that stuff over once the email is all set up. So that'll probably be like Monday of next week.
Got it. Got
Random
it. Got it.
question for Doug, totally not being familiar with this area. Do they have a specific client target list that they want you to focus on, or like specific numbers to hit within like the first, I don't know, 90 days? I'm just totally speculating here. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, no. So as far as numbers go, like my first month, my first 30 days, like I won't have a quota attainment. And then month 2 and month 3 will be like lower than what it would be if I was fully ramped. So it's kind of like a slowish onboarding process. And then for the like ideal customer profile or accounts that I'll be reaching out to, it really is, there's no real limit to who I can and can't go after. But the company does focus on these high growth brands, like obviously very D2C focused. But a lot of the people that I'll be reaching out to, a lot of internal leads, like people asking for more information. So then it's like hopping on a phone call with them to really see like what are they interested in, what do they need, what are their pain points. So it's a combination of inbound and outbound prospecting.
What else can I tell you? What else do you want to know about in regards to your first 30 days?
I mean, shoot, it's I'm just
Let me
trying to
ask you
like
this.
look back on past experiences, like what did I do in the first 30 days, and
Yeah.
I
And you're
really,
remote this time, right?
yeah, and yeah, since it's remote, it's for me, it's
how
just about
many,
hold myself accountable and do
yeah,
so.
how many, and when the interview process, did you ever talk to other salespeople?
I did last year. This time around, I didn't. I spoke with the VP of sales and another sales manager, because the familiarity was already there.
Right.
Um, so no,
So
not
here's what
this.
I would do. I'd go back to one or two of those reps if they're still there.
Mhm.
Hopefully they are. And I'd say, hey, last year this didn't work. I'm coming on board. Can I have 15 minutes? I want to understand what's changed in the business model since COVID.
Yeah,
How are you adapting? Like what do you wish someone would have told you had they been able to foresee this forced work from home world? Right?
yeah.
What do you wish someone would have told you about what the prospects and customers are saying now? What are the biggest objections you're getting these days?
And
Right?
that way,
That's who I would talk to.
yeah. The one account executive that I interviewed with last year, just kind of like a peer interview, what's your day to day like? She has since been promoted to a manager of a team at the same company. So maybe on Monday when I speak with my manager, I'll see if I can speak with any account executives and just kind of pick their brain a little bit.
Sure. So, but even still, now that she's a manager, this is exactly her role,
Yeah.
even if it's a different team, right?
Mhm.
That's her role. Her role is to teach any new hire that comes on board what's changed.
Yep. Hmm.
So,
I've
and
heard,
she'll be able to give it to you. And when you talk to her, ask her from the rep perspective. hey, if you were still a rep
Yeah.
right now, what would you have wished someone could have told you April 1st about being a rep?
And it's like open-ended questions, what I'm hearing as well.
Yep. All open-ended.
Yeah.
I've heard customer success a lot. I mean, from time to time, people will say, talk to customer success. What language are they using? Why do they like it? Why do they don't like it? Is that something
Yeah.
that's on par?
I don't disagree with that. I don't think that's where my mind goes initially, right? I tend to be more rep oriented, but I think it's a great idea.
That makes sense. You probably ask them different questions. So Richard, not to put you on the spot, but you had written something that I found pretty interesting about the forgetting curve.
Mhm.
And it seems like you are incorporating that into your training. Do you mind maybe giving us a little bit of an overview of what that is, just kind of bring us up to speed? And then are there elements of it that we might be able to use when we are job hunting or in our careers in general?
Ask the question again because I want to make sure I understand it.
So basically, like, what is the forgetting curve and how can we apply it to our job hunt? And then
Yeah.
it's
So
something that can be applied to our career.
um, so the forgetting curve is it's called the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. You can go research it. It was I can't remember if it was the 1780s or the 1870s. This guy named Ebbinghaus figured out that after 30 days, people forget stuff, which, you know, big shock, right? Not surprised at all. Um, that being said, in a sales world, it's about reinforcement, right? So it'll be one thing, Doug, for you to go and like write down all these case studies, right?
Mhm.
It'll be another for you to, once you do that on, day one, where you spend a couple hours on it, the next thing is, well, day two, I just need to skim it and remember. Day three, I need to skim it and remember. Day four, so that you can build out the muscle memory, right? So that
Yeah.
it goes into your long-term memory, right? Like your short-term memory is, the stuff we forget. The ABC song is, it's been there since memory because we sang it 100,000 times,
Mhm.
right? Um, so that's that's what you're trying to focus on with the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. On the interview side, um, what you might need to do is going back and writing down your own accomplishments. It's kind of like that resume piece. Like when you sit down and you rewrite your resume and you start to put the numbers in front of it, you kind of walk out going, "Oh my God, I'm fantastic," right? Which, not that we want to be egocentric, but it does make you feel good. You feel accomplished. You're like, "Oh my God, I forgot I had done that. I forgot it," and you want to own that stuff because in the interview process, we need to be prepared to answer those questions. And if we forget them, that's a challenge. And again, those things that are big deals, those big deals you've done, whether it's Pepsi or some other company, or even if it's an SMB and it's your first deal, they stick with you. I can tell you, my very first cold call sale, I was selling classified ads, and I called out of the Rolling Stone magazine, and her name is Opal Phillips, and I sold a 52-week contract for $6 a week. Why would I remember that? I don't know. Like it was nothing, right? but that's the stuff that in the interview process I think is interesting, right? Um, and again, it's a funny story, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's interesting.
you know, um, so that's the kind of stuff that I think you need to be mindful of, um, in terms of the interview process. I also think that's the part about doing your research and studying people, right? And looking at their LinkedIn profile if you can, or finding articles about them, because it's that personal connection that you're trying to figure out. Now, the other thing I would tell you to look at, and as you start to look at, I'm going to shift this if I can, unless there's another question around the forgetting curve.
Well, I was just going to ask if, from an interview standpoint, if the forgetting curve meant sometimes people that you interview with kind of forget and, that they have your resume and should you follow up and how
Yep.
soon, you know,
Right. Yeah.
how
Well,
often.
that's your challenge, right? Um, it's totally appropriate to me, but I'm also in sales, so I'm calling sales leaders, right? If I'm going through this process, like I got no problem calling someone, every day, if I want a sales job, right? They expect that in my role, right? In your role, I think, again, because you do this heavy hit on day one of email, LinkedIn, phone call, I would even tweet them. I would even absolutely tweet them if they're on Twitter. Um, and, and, give it a day. Like, if you do it on Monday, give it till Tuesday. I mean, give it till Wednesday, right? Um, if I did it on Thursday, like today, was today Thursday? Yeah, sorry. They all run together these days, right? If I did it on Thursday, I'd probably call them on Friday because I don't want it to get buried over the weekend. And this is a strategy you can try this weekend too. I'm also a big fan of you sending the emails late afternoon on Sunday. Because what's every executive doing Sunday night?
Checking email.
They're checking emails. They have, you can kind of get their undivided attention. So those hyper personalized emails are the ones that I think are really meaningful there, right? Um, you know, and again, the same thing with the LinkedIn, then you could call them on Monday, right? Um, I'm also not opposed to you for this strategy, again, based on your industry. You email and LinkedIn them on Monday. On Tuesday, you make the phone call, right? So you're hitting them up a couple of times, but then you're calling the next day, right? Um, those are my thoughts. Um, I got no problem if you call them at, wherever they are local time. You know, if it's East Coast and we know business starts at 9, I don't have a problem with you calling at 8:30, right? We know that works. My caveat to that, my one thing to keep in mind around the phone calls is that people are going through their back to school motion and they're trying to get to their new normal if they're doing school from home,
Mhm.
right? Um, and that first week, like even before work from home, the first week of school is just chaos in general. Right? It's just everybody's, wait, our whole morning routine is different. Oh no, we can't find the book bag. I mean, it's just like, got to get the kids out of bed. Like that may not be the best time to call. So,
Yeah, that's a good point.
you know, so I don't know. You have to sort of experiment with it, but that's my opinion.
And is the act of doing these things just straight practice in terms of like building the muscle, like you said, and getting used to running through these cadences?
I think so. I mean, I guess so. I mean, I sort of figured it out on my own,
Mm,
right? So if the question is, should I have a checklist of these things? Sure, if that helps you,
yeah.
right?
And the psychological element of it in terms of like, because I think with salespeople, a lot of times we're sort of trained, we're dealing with rejection, we're
Mhm.
kind of building that muscle. But with a lot of people in marketing or other fields, it isn't as much of a trained muscle. Are there ways other than practice that people can get more comfortable?
That's a deeper psychological question, right? That's a if it's kind of like people who don't like cold calling, but they want to be in sales, right? Oh, I hate cold calling. I'm afraid. There's not a whole lot I can do about that, right? I can spend some time talking about it. What makes you afraid? What if we had a better plan? That kind of stuff. Um, so without a more specific example, I don't know that I could answer the question as well as I might be able to.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I bring it up is because it comes up a lot with our candidates. I think Mandy, not to put you on the spot, but I know it came up in our conversations as well. It was kind of like, it seems like that would work for some people, some certain people, but if it's not my style, or I do still feel like it's a little bit intrusive. A lot of times that hurdle is one of the more difficult ones to overcome.
Well, so this is the game we have to play with ourselves, right? Um, wasn't Nobody was very concerned about how intrusive they were into my life when they laid me off because of COVID, right? Nobody's going to protect you more than you. Nobody's going to look out for your interest more than you. Now, that doesn't mean you have an us versus them mentality, right? But if you run into that, then again, then it's a signal, right? If they're like, you were way too aggressive. Okay, great. I'm just trying to break through the noise. What would you have recommended? Don't say, but can we still talk? But just say, okay, so what advice would you give me? Right.
Mhm.
Um, so, you've got to do what's right for you and protect yourself. Right. I agree with you if you're not used to doing it, and it's also a different world than sales. I totally get that. Um, you know, but again, I just have a hard time believing that people don't want folks who are willing to not, I think the word aggressive is wrong. I think it's the word passion,
Yeah.
right? It's like I'm passionate about me getting a job, and I'm also really passionate about your organization that I'm so passionate I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe, again, these are the games we have to play with ourselves. So maybe it's how do I adjust my own mindset? Is that it's not about aggressiveness, it's about passion. You
Sure.
like to work, you want to be busy,
Sure.
right? You know, so let's channel that passion in a healthy way.
Great.
Yeah, that is so true. That I found out. It's like over the last 6 months, it's kind of realized I really do enjoy like working and being busy. Like it's you kind of one of those things that you don't realize until it's gone.
Hmm.
Totally.
Yeah, that's so right on. And and it shows that you're willing to put yourself out there, and that person, that recipient, they are just as afraid, and they are going through the exact same imposter syndrome a lot of times in sending their own messages. So when they see
Yep.
someone taking the initiative, they're like, wow, I want to be close to this person somehow.
Yep.
Yeah.
So many great moments. You guys, like I keep trying to keep my excitement inside so I don't interrupt, like if we were on stage, I'd be like, like be like pyrotechnics in the back and stuff. But so many great moments. Are there other questions that you guys have?
I mean, from my perspective, I really appreciate your time and just hearing, your perspective in terms of, this is not necessarily my world, but I think it's really great to apply these strategies and tactics to someone who comes from more of a creative marketing background, because I think it's great. And also people do, if you have a conversation with someone, they're more than willing to help. I think it's just getting through to that point where you can have a conversation. It's not like you can ask somebody to grab a cup of coffee right now. But I do think people are willing to help. And I think it's just about, even Doug, with your job, it's like, you're going to have to start calling clients and showing what you can bring to the table and how you can add value to them. And I think it's just about making connections. So really it's just more of a comment, and I appreciate everyone's time today. So thank you.
So here's my
Yeah.
question. Before you go, Doug, because I'm going to ask you this question too. So you get a little extra time, Doug. Amanda, what are your 3 things you're going to start doing immediately based on this conversation?
So I heard numbers, make sure that is very visible. I heard phone call. So making that call, which I wasn't thinking about in COVID, but you're right. People are still checking their voicemail. I heard stories. I heard people want to hear, you have to tell a story.
Right.
And then the forgetting curve is really interesting, because I just think, we sort of are all kind of walking around in a haze. So how can you not only practice, your numbers, but also, remind people of who you are and how passionate you are. So numbers, stories, passion, and phone call. Does that sound about right?
Whatever's good for you. So and here's the thing. If you show the numbers, they're going to ask about the story.
Right.
They're
Right.
going to say, tell me more about that Pepsi thing. I want to know how you did that. Right.
Exactly.
Now you're in storytelling mode.
Sure.
Then you're in
Perfect.
too. You're selling yourself once it gets to that point.
Right.
Not even. You're not selling yourself at all. They're buying.
Yeah,
You're not selling. You're just
I was
telling
gonna
the
say
story.
they're trying to pull you towards them. Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. All right, Doug, you, my friend.
So I'm gonna study these case studies, make a spreadsheet about them, and just repetition on learning what the KPIs were and what the success was like and who what the titles are. So I'm going to do that. A lot of more research on the company and the executives, like watch their all hands video if it's online or on YouTube or something like that.
Right.
And I will probably, based on the research that I do, like the case studies that are on the website, I will probably begin to build out a target account list, just slowly but surely, just so I kind of have an idea of who I want to reach out to. And I mean, shoot, maybe they're already clients, but at least like I'm thinking in the right direction if that's the case.
Perfect.
Awesome. So look out for the video and the video clips coming out. Thank you so much again, Richard, for jumping in. So many amazing moments. Doug and Amanda, thank you too for jumping in with us. Doug, congratulations, and congratulations on getting married and your honeymoon.
Yeah, it's awesome.
A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, but it's good timing, right? Like,
very good timing.
Don't have to worry about it.
Monkey is off the back for sure. But now I just actually got to do work. Good work.
Yeah. Well, you'll hopefully take a break. And then Amanda, please, we will continue to follow up, kind of hold you accountable, and looking forward to getting you hired as well.
Thanks so much, everyone. I appreciate everyone's time.
Love it.
Thank you, everybody. Catch you later.
Bye.
Have a great day.